那丹麦农业食品委员会是丹麦农业净零目标的发起组织，也是丹麦政府跟产业净零计划的主导者跟推动者。对丹麦食品农业来讲，是一个重量级的产业。那接下来，我们邀请丹麦农业与食品委员会的气候长 Peter Niels Norring 为我们分享丹麦的经验。
Thank you very much for arranging this very actual and very important webinar in a world where we are facing several huge challenges. Challenge with the climate, challenge with biodiversity, the environmental challenge, but also the challenge with production growth and increasing food demand. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak for you today. I will present a vision to you, the Danish way to net zero carbon emission in the agriculture and food sector by 2050. But let me start by bringing you on a short journey, a journey to the beautiful country of Denmark. Imagine yourself in a helicopter, flying in from the sea, viewing green fields and farmland for the first time. Beautiful? Right. This is also a country on a journey towards climate neutral agriculture and food sector. Let us land the helicopter and look closer at the landscape. Next slide, please. I want to show you this because the Danish agriculture and food sector is unique. Why is it unique? Because it is a merger of farmers, food companies, many of them cooperatives, and agribusiness, supplies, and food tech companies. Agriculture and food is the largest competence cluster in Denmark. This cluster includes different farms, for example, pigs, cows, and crops. Food industries such as slaughterhouses, dairies, and agribusiness, and also food tech companies. And on top of it, it includes our advisory services, which is owned by the farmers, the universities with their knowledge, and our own agricultural knowledge and innovation center, spreading new knowledge from the researchers at the universities to the farmers on the farm. In Denmark, we have strong cooperatives where we focus on optimization in the value chain, sustainable intensive production, and food safety and animal welfare. All this makes Danish agriculture and food sector unique worldwide. Next slide, please. If we would turn to our helicopter and continue our journey, as we fly over Denmark, you will see cities and towns, and finally, you will see all the villages scattered around the countryside. Does this make Denmark special? Well, yes, it does. Because in a country with 5.8 million people, there are 35,000 family-owned farms with around 65,000 employees. Now look closer from the helicopter, and you will notice an agricultural landscape which is incredibly varied. 575,000 fields. Fields with wheat, fields with barley, rapeseed, grass, but also many special crops like seed production and potatoes. And these fields are surrounded by field boundaries, streams, or hedges, but also in between we have large lakes and natural areas. And if you look down more detailed, you will see that on some of the fields there are cows, and you will even see on some of the fields there are pigs. It is pigs from the organic pig production. Next slide, please. Let's take a closer look on Denmark's agricultural production in numbers. Together, the 35,000 farms I just mentioned, but also the modern stables, produce a total of 9 million tons of grain, 5.7 million tons of milk, around 140,000 tons of beef, 2 million tons of pork, and 202,000 tons of poultry. Next slide, please. As I said in the beginning, the Danish agriculture and food cluster is the largest competence cluster in Denmark. How did we manage to create such a strong agriculture and food cluster in Denmark? The answer is simple, but also complex. Denmark's 35,000 farms with 575,000 fields and all the modern stables together create the unique basis for Denmark's strong agriculture and food cluster. Until now, I have been telling you about the present, but there's also a future. Next slide, please. In our organization, Danish Agriculture and Food Council, we have a vision. The Danish food industry will become climate neutral by 2050. This means that we will no longer emit more greenhouse gases than we absorb, and we will contribute to achieving this goal through green and sustainable energy. In close collaboration with the rest of Denmark and in line with the UN global objectives, we will show the world that there is an economically sustainable path to climate neutral food production. That's our vision. We presented this vision 2 years ago, and we have been working hard ever since. Not easy. We can do half of it with the knowledge we already have. Partnership is the key. If we want to see this vision come true, we must work together. Universities with their knowledge, the state with its resources, farmers with their adaptability and knowledge, companies with their ambition and willingness to develop, which, for example, will be able to optimize transport and packaging, ensuring that all the raw materials are used and create the climate-friendly product that consumers demand. And it requires that consumers also take part in this process. For example, by agreeing to pay a little more for the new climate-friendly products that we in the agriculture and food sector will develop. In return, we can make together a decisive contribution to one of the greatest challenges of our time and at the same time ensure that Danish products and solutions are promoted. Denmark is a small country, but we are a food nation with noble traditions and great traditions. Together with the whole of Denmark, we will show the world that there is a way towards climate neutral food production. Next slide, please. On many farms, you will find peatlands, which are drained and have a very high CO2 emission. Many of these areas must in the future be converted to nature. We must stop the draining of a lot of these areas and let them be moistured meadows with no or very, very extensive agricultural production. On the other fields, we have emissions of laughter gas. Here we must focus on better utilization of our manure and fertilizer. The fertilizer and manure should be brought out in the fields on the right time and in the right way. This will benefit climate as well as environment. In the fields and plant production, we must also focus on new plant varieties. We should focus even more on breeding and also allowing the use of new breeding techniques. And finally, in the fields and plant production, we must focus on changing in the crop rotation. We should have more grass and less cereals. And at the same time, we must continue the work which is going on in Denmark with refining the grass so the proteins can be used as feed for pigs and poultry. Then let's move into the stables. Here we must have focus on genetics, feedstuffs, manure handling, and ventilation. In relation with manure handling, we must have focus on the temperature in the stable and at the same time have focus on how long time the manure is in the stable. The manure should be brought out to the manure storage faster than today. And the manure should be used as, for example, biogas. And to achieve the good results, we must have educated farmers, have very, very good advisors, and have a unique transferring of knowledge from universities to the farms. Here in Denmark, we don't start from scratch. We have had focus on efficient production, producing more with less in many, many years. And efficient production is a cornerstone in the climate action in the coming years. Next slide, please. As mentioned, we don't start from scratch. This graph illustrates that in Denmark, we have managed to increase a milk cow production by 43% if compared to 1997. This means that a milk cow in Denmark today produces an average of more than 10,000 kilos of milk a year. Next slide. And this graph shows that we have managed to increase the average number of piglets per sow from around 22 in 95 to 33 in 2018. An increase by around 50% in 20 years. And during the same period, feed efficiency has increased significantly. Next slide, please. We will continue our journey on the farms. However, we must have full focus on new technologies that can give us the great necessary technology leaps. One of these technologies is pyrolysis, where we use the straw and also use the manure to produce energy, gas, and biooil, and at the same time produce biochar. The biochar can be spread on the fields, and in this way, we will store half of the CO2 as carbon in the soil. And this biochar will last as carbon for hundreds of years. And the gas and biooil can be upgraded to climate-friendly jet fuel. With this technology, we will be able to reduce the climate impact on agriculture of agriculture with 50%. So, dear friends, in the future, when you will be flying to Denmark or I will be flying to Taiwan to share knowledge, we could fly on climate-friendly jet fuel. And in fact, for each flight we will take, we will reduce the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere by 50%. So there are very good technologies. And there are even more than this one. Next slide, please. As said, there are also other technologies on the way to be introduced in large scale in Denmark. One of the very big challenges for the agriculture all over the world, it is the emission of methane from our cows. We are together with the universities looking at feed additives, which can reduce the methane emission with 50%. And why not collect methane from our stables and use it? One of the promising technologies we have in Denmark is the feeding of bacteria that come from the bottom of lakes with methane. And with the doubling of bacteria within a very short period, you can produce a lot of feed to chickens or pigs. As Minister Chen mentioned, we also have to focus on biogas and waste, two areas where the Danish Parliament have already made concrete plans to expand the biogas production and reduce the amount of waste in food production and food waste. And in our sector, the agriculture sector, we have had focus on using everything in relation with agricultural production. And as Charles mentioned, we must have full focus on the supply chain. In Danish agriculture, we agree what you said, Charles Hung, 100%. Next slide, please. As mentioned, we can do a lot in the coming years to reduce the pressure on climate, but we must do it in partnership with Denmark, with the state and the universities. In the same time and same way, we must build up partnerships outside our small country. Next slide. And a small country like Denmark can, with partnerships and exchange of knowledge, genetics, and technology, will, for example, you in Taiwan, make a big difference. Next slide. Thank you very much for your attention, and I really hope that we can continue a good and constructive cooperation in the future for the mutual benefit of our agriculture in both countries and for the benefit of the climate. Thank you very much.